I don't generally get into new shows. I spend my time watching the classics like The Sopranos or Deadwood, and I only really check out new shows after they've been out for a while and I know that they're good. I just don't want to waste my time on a series that won't have a good payoff, and you never know how good a show will be until it's over. However, I decided to check out The Penguin, the new HBO miniseries set in the Matt Reeves Batman universe. If you're a fan of this channel, then you'll know that I don't usually like comic book stuff. However, I decided to give it a chance because of the fact that The Penguin was clearly more influenced by The Sopranos and other classic gangster stories, rather than the usual DC or Marvel cape shit. And I'm really glad that I gave The Penguin a shot, because it's one of the best new shows that I've seen in a while. If you're looking to scratch that crime thriller itch for shows like Boardwalk Empire or The Sopranos, then yeah, I think you could do a lot worse than The Penguin. It's still definitely a comic book show, but it leans much more into character writing and strong pacing than the usual schlock that the studio has put out. So, in this video, let's take a look at The Penguin, the newest member of the pure Kino family.
They're taking back Gotham!
Now, I always put a warning at the beginning of my videos, but since this is a brand new show, let me make it even more clear. There will be spoilers for not only The Penguin, but also The Sopranos. If you haven't seen either of those shows and don't want to be spoiled, I'd drop off here and come back when you're done.
Believe me, there's plenty I'd like to forget.
Yeah, you and me both.
Like I said before, The Penguin is a spin-off of the 2022 movie The Batman. It follows the Penguin, named Oswald Cobb in this version, as he climbs the ladder of Gotham's underworld following Carmine Falcone's death in the movie. Played by Colin Farrell, Oz is one of the most interesting comic book villains that I've seen in a long time.
Maybe we don't see eye to eye on every little thing. You know, maybe you don't like me. It's fine. I'm an acquired taste.
However, standing in the way of his ascent is Carmine's daughter, Sophia. Recently released from Arkham Asylum, she sets out to take revenge on everyone who's ever betrayed her. Sophia is played by Kristen Milioti, who you might just recognize from her small role as Johnny Sack's daughter in The Sopranos.
Jesus, can we ever talk about anything in this family besides food?
Speaking of The Sopranos, the show borrows so many elements from that series. Rather than his usual British aristocrat getup from the comics, Oz is portrayed more like a modern gangster with the leather jackets and cigars. His love of old movies is just like Tony. Even the way he talks with a Jersey accent seems to be inspired by the way that James Gandolfini performed the role of Tony Soprano.
The world ain't set up for the honest man to succeed. America's a hustle.
And those other fucks, those other, the J.P. Morgans, they were crooks and killers too, but that was the business, right? The American way.
And the parallels don't just stop there. Oswald's toxic relationship with his mother is very reminiscent of Tony's relationship with Livia. Even the house she lives in looks like Livia's. While Frances is a very different character than Livia ultimately, there's still a lot of that negativity and neediness in her performance.
But we got time. Just gotta be patient.
Yeah, tell it to my headstone.
Jesus, don't start with that shit.
Come on. Come on. Come on.
Stop, Dad.
Oswald's relationship with Victor is also very reminiscent of Tony's relationship with Christopher. He takes Victor under his wing and nurtures him in the world of crime, just like Tony did with his nephew. Victor has a chance to leave the life of crime behind with his love interest, but ultimately turns it down for power and wealth, just like Christopher does with Adriana. Oz eventually disposes of Victor, just like Tony kills Christopher, despite their supposed family connection. Now, obviously, I bring all of this stuff up because I'm a Sopranos channel, and I love noticing all the references and connections to my favorite series. But I don't mean to imply that The Penguin is just copying The Sopranos. The show clearly has its own identity, and it just uses more of the trappings of a modern television drama, rather than the usual comic book schlock. And I think that's a good thing. The Matt Reeves Batman universe, sometimes called the Batman Crime Saga, is going for a more stylized but realistic approach, with an emphasis on more grounded detective stories over larger set pieces. And I think that looking to something like The Sopranos for inspiration was a smart decision for the series, which is meant to bridge the gap between the two movies.
Get out of my house!
Hi,
Who the hell is this? Who the hell are you? What?
Shit,
What?
Ma, sorry, this is Vic.
Get out!
He's gonna help take care of you.
The smoke he hires for his own mother.
That's not to say that this show is perfect, or even on the level of something like The Sopranos. There were a lot of flaws with the storytelling. While Oz and Sophia had fleshed out character arcs, most of the other side characters don't really get enough time to breathe. Like, at the end of the series, all the underbosses of the gangs rise up and take out their bosses, but I couldn't even tell you any of their names. It makes it hard to be that invested into the larger crime world of Gotham when I really have no idea how any of these gangs work.
What kind of mullignans are these? They call themselves gangsters.
It's a new fucking day.
Fucking depressing.
Even Victor, who's supposed to be one of the main characters of the show, really did not get enough development for me. His character arc is obviously meant to mirror those of characters like Christopher or even Jesse Pinkman from Breaking Bad, but he's not given enough motivation for why he's doing what he does. Instead, he feels like he's forced into the story, which I guess technically he is, but that makes his arc less satisfying. Christopher chose to join the life despite knowing what would happen to his soul, which makes the consequences all the more tragic. Victor has the one moment where he could have left, but I felt like we should have had him more pushing to be involved. That would have made his death at the hands of Oz all the more powerful, as he sold his soul to the devil who ultimately betrayed him.
It says in these movie writing books that every character has an arc. You understand? Where's my arc, Paulie?
Now, certainly a lot of these problems are due to the time constraints of being a miniseries. The Sopranos had 6 seasons to flesh out its characters, while The Penguin has only 8 episodes. They obviously have to speed a lot of this along, while keeping in mind that this series ultimately had to lead into the next movie, which puts even more constraints on what the characters end up doing. So I'm very forgiving for a lot of these flaws, and they don't ruin the show for me or anything. However, one issue that can't just be waved away is the way that the series treats Sophia Falcone. Now, don't get me wrong, she's an interesting character with a lot of great development and motivation. I like having her as the antagonist, as she plays well off of Oz, and having her as a mix of both a traditional mafia boss and an Arkham Asylum lunatic is a really cool dynamic.
Sophia, I thought you was still at,
Arkham?
Yeah.
No. I've been rehabilitated.
However, I felt like the show was afraid to really let her loose as a villain. Now, Sophia does do some bad things, like bombing a poor neighborhood and having her own version of Joker's funhouse from The Killing Joke. But most of her negative actions are impersonal and vague compared to how the show portrays Oz's faults. I felt like they should have had her really go all out as a psychopath. She should have sent her niece to the mental asylum just like her father did to her. Would that have been hypocritical? Of course, but great villains are always hypocritical and self-centered. The Sopranos, which again was a big inspiration for this show, was full of characters who acted like that.
Tony, relax. It's not a big deal.
It's undermining. And it's the kind of stuff I'm teaching my kids not to do. So I don't want to hear it again. End of subject. Well, sit down and dig into this medley of pastas that Janice whipped up.
How you doing, Uncle June?
While the show doesn't fall into most of the usual modern television bullshit, it still seems to have this idea that because you want a character to be sympathetic, you can't have them do anything truly awful. Instead, it seems like showrunner Lauren LaFranc wanted Sophia to be the character that the audience roots for. She actually said that Sophia is the closest thing to a hero in the show, and it's clear that she didn't want Sophia to do anything truly reprehensible, which is a shame, as I think it holds her back from being a truly great villain.
You're going to hell, sweetheart.
I'll save you a seat.
However, flaws aside, The Penguin is still a really good series, and one that I can recommend wholeheartedly. Even as someone who doesn't usually like comic book media, I found the show grounded and character-focused in a way that most other comic book stuff just isn't. It's a well-paced, exciting thriller with some very interesting characters and mostly strong writing. So if you're looking for something like The Sopranos set in the Batman universe, definitely check out this show. I hope you all enjoyed this video. Again, I know I don't usually cover new series like this, but it was fun to talk about something that's current for a change. Let me know your thoughts on the Penguin in the comments, and stay tuned for more content coming soon. This show takes drowning at the Penguin exhibit to a whole new meaning. Matt Joyce, Uncle Mike, Sam Cedarlund, Celery Man, Countess von Zarevich, Admiral, Neil Varma, Juan Jaramillo, and Cheshire.